All right, to recap, so far we have a GUI that we are able to run. And when we run it, it pops up. If we click on add new vehicle, another GUI pops up. And it lets the user select which type they want to add. If they click car, this GUI disappears. And a new add new auto GUI pops up. They could type in the make, model, select the number of doors, whether it has a sunroof or not, a spoiler, and the number of cylinders. They can either hit add or cancel. I don't think we've implemented either one of these yet, but we've implemented add maybe, and I have to look. If we close this GUI, it does not close the full program. It just closes that individual GUI. So that's how far we've gotten so far. And if we want to look at the code for that, again, when you're writing your GUI, when you want to implement the code for a button, you double click the button. It takes you to your action performed method for that button. Inside this method, what I've done is I have a class variable type GUI. My type GUI is this one, which allows the user to click which type of object they want to add. So for that class variable, I set the location relative to null, which centers it on the screen. I set the default close operation to dispose on close, which allows the user to hit the X button and close that GUI, but not close the whole program. And then I set the visible to true so that we can see it now. That's all that add button does. So when I run this, if I hit the add new vehicle, this GUI pops up. That's all I've done in that code. If I hit the X button, it just closes that GUI.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
What was that?
No.
Hey, I got a comment real quick, Dr. Brown.
Yes,
Hey, you know that double click that you were saying to create an action for the buttons.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I also know I also noticed that on your YouTube videos, like you have the other one, you have them disabled or grayed out, and you want it to pop up when you add something. Well, if you double click on the buttons to create an action, you can't do that anymore.
When they're disabled?
Yeah, like it won't even, like, they'll just stay grayed out, period. Or they'll stay highlighted when you try to do anything. Like, it won't change it because you've already double clicked on the button to give it an action. Just FYI.
I'm a little confused, but I'll try to figure out what you're saying, because I'm going to make these enabled at some point.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to enable these at some point.
All right.
All right. So one of the things is inside our main GUI, we have this inventory list. Okay. Inventory list. And with that inventory list, or the autos model, which goes into our list, we need to update that when we add an automobile to it. All right. So each time, again, this list right here is based on a list model. And that list model has all of our automobile objects in it. So when a user clicks on it, we want to give them the option to modify that vehicle, to remove it. But when we add to it, we need to update it as well. So in order to do that, you go back into our source. I'm going to create a new model, a new method where all we do is redraw that list or update it. So public void update list model. And inside this, I believe the code is autos model, which is our default list model dot. I want to say it is redraw. It is not redraw. I want to update it. It might be the inventory list dot redraw. No, it's not. Let's see. This is where we have Google. Update, Java update, list model. Let's see. Ah, okay. Okay. All right. So one of the things we can do is, I believe we can use a list model instead of an array list. And our list model will act as our array list. And I'm going to try this. This is live, so I'm going to try to see if this works. So what I'm saying is this default list model can act as our array list. So in essence, they are redundant. So I'm going to try to see if I can just use a default list model instead of using an array list to add elements and remove elements. We'll see if this works or not. So we have this autos model. We don't need this line of code anymore because we're not going to use our array list. Previously, when we created our GUIs, we passed in our array list to those GUIs so that it was shared. So instead of passing an array list, I want to pass in a list model. And I'm going to set my class variable autos model equal to what we just passed in. So all I'm doing is, again, default list models are passed by reference. So when I pass this default list model from my main GUI to the car GUI to the truck GUI, it's all the same list model. It's all the same list. So if I modify it in one of these GUIs, it's going to modify it everywhere else. All right, truck GUI. I'm going to do the same thing here. Instead of an array list, we're going to pass in a default list model. This dot autos model equals autos model. So again, I'm sharing that default list model across all of these different GUIs so that I can update it in one of them and it populates to all of the others. Car GUI, what's the issue? All right. So if we look at our code, I'm going to just check that. Comment that out. If we look at our code again, so far we have our main GUI. When the user clicks on add new, it pops up this GUI. They can click this button, which pops up this GUI. So that behavior is controlled in here. I went to my car type GUI, double click this button, which takes me to the action performed. I'm reusing this car GUI. So when somebody tries to add an object or update one, we can reuse that same GUI. So I had created a method called set add prompts, which inside our car GUI, if we look at that, it sets all the prompts for the title. So we look here, this title label becomes add new auto. And this enter button right here, the text says add. Okay, I also reset all the text fields because we're reusing this GUI. So the text fields could have old information in them if we don't reset them. I also set the location relative to node to center it on the screen. The default close operation to dispose on close. I set the visibility of that car GUI to true. And the visibility of this GUI which is the one where the user can select car or truck, to false. That makes it disappear. And so that leaves us with just this car GUI and the main GUI. These two up. All right. Inside our car GUI, I clicked on the double click the add button, which takes me to the action performed. Inside this button, I get all the values for my different text boxes. So the make text field, the model text field, the number of doors, if it has a sunroof or not, a spoiler or not, and the number of cylinders. I grab all that information. Then I check. I have an error message, and I check if make is an empty string. I say make is required. If model is an empty string, model is required. Then I check if this error message is empty, meaning there were no errors. Then we attempt to add the car. All right. We add the car. So we create a new car, set the make equal to the make, which is what we gathered from the text field. The model equal to the model, which we gathered from the text field up here. The spoiler, the sunroof, and the number of cylinders all up here. I think I'm actually forgetting car.set num doors. And then the last thing to do is to add this car to our autos model, which is that default list model. And it's add element. And we add that car to our list model. And so when we do that, it should display it in our list model. The last thing I want to do for this GUI is this dot set visible to false. So we set the visibility of this GUI to false, which makes it disappear. And we're just left with our main GUI. So let's see what this looks like. We run it. Again, the add new vehicle method or button pops up this GUI. When they click on car, it pops up the new GUI, the add new auto GUI. If I don't type anything in, right, it's going to give us an error. Make is required, model is required. And again, that's based on this code. So I check if error message. If there is no error message, add the car. The else statement, else there is an error message. We open up a J option pane show message dialog, which is a quick GUI. This little easy GUI, it's already a built-in GUI. And you can put in some text. So the text I put in is whatever our error message is. And that's right here, this error message. The title is error with input. And then the type of pop-up this is an error message, which gives us this little red hexagon, I believe. Or is that an octagon?
Quick question,
Everything.
Professor.
The hexagon, I think.
Hello.
Yeah.
You posted the video. You posted the videos for the GUIs from Friday. From last Wednesday's class and Monday class. This Monday's class.
No, so Monday and today I'll put together into one video and I'll upload those because that's all implementing the GUI.
Cause I missed Monday because I was trying to follow along with you.
Yeah.
But you got a lot more than what I have because I had missed class on Monday.
Yeah. I'm going to put Monday and today's lecture together as one big lecture and then upload it just like I did last week.
Okay, so since this makeup week, the lab and the what's it called?
Are due
can
Sunday.
be due on Sunday.
Correct.
Thank you. I appreciate you a lot.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, they're both due Sunday at 11:59 p.m. All right. So again, if I hit the add button, since there is an error, it's going to pop up this message. However, if I do actually add stuff, Ford Mustang, the number of doors is 2, sunroof, spoiler, number of cylinders is 8, of course. I hit add, it should add it to our GUI, which it does. And so what you see here is our toString method. So under the automobiles, whatever I have in our toString is what is going to pop up here. So in our toString, I have make, model, number of doors, Ford Mustang 2. And then under car, I have spoiler, sunroof, or num cylinders. So spoiler is true, sunroof is true, num cylinders is 8. Of course, if we were creating a real GUI, we want to make this look a little bit better. We probably would have a table here. It would say, make, model, number of doors, yada, yada, yada. But as it stands, this is fine. And the good thing about this is we can add as many cars as we want. Chevy, Camaro, again, 2 doors. Let's say it just has a spoiler and it's still 8 cylinders. We hit add. You see it pops up here. All right. Add again. Let's say a Chevy Impala. Has 4 doors. Has a sunroof, no spoiler, but it's 8 cylinders. And there we go. So we can add cars. Okay. So I've done the add functionality for a car, not the truck. Now you notice the cancel button doesn't work. But the cancel button is really simple. It's really simple. It doesn't take a whole lot of code. So under our car GUI, we have the add. The cancel button, pretty much all I want to do is reset this dot reset. And if you remember, our reset method sets all the text fields to empty. And then I just want to say this dot set visible to false. I just want to make it disappear. Cancel buttons are really simple. So if I run this now, add new vehicle, click on this, cancel, it goes away. All right. Pretty simple. All right. So the thing is, again, we look at this, the modify and the remove are both grayed out. So we need some way to update that from our other GUIs when we add an object. All right. When we add an object, we need to update our buttons. If the list model has elements in it, we need to update it. All right. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to create a method. So delete this one. Public void enable buttons. All this method will do is this dot update or modify, I think this dot modify vehicle dot set enabled to true. This dot remove button dot set enabled to true. I'm also going to create public void disable buttons. This dot modify vehicle dot set enabled to false. This dot remove button dot set enabled to true. And I know we're running out of time, but I'm going to continue this after class, record all of this and upload it so you can get the full implementation so you can do the extra credit. All right, so we have our main GUI. We have code that can enable and disable these buttons. All right. We want to have the ability to enable and disable them based on when we add or remove a vehicle. All right. So if the list model has elements in it, we want the modify and remove button to be available. If the list model doesn't have any, we want those to be disabled. All right. So what we can do is, there's a couple of different ways we can solve this. All right. One is we can attach a action listener to our list model. So every time it's updated, we enable or disable. Another way is to check whether that list model has elements and then call those methods for our main GUI. So for example, in our car GUI, when we add something, we would say main GUI dot enable buttons. We could do that, except the problem is that method isn't available in our main GUI. All right. Again, we can solve this a couple different ways. One way is we can pass this main GUI object to all of our subsequent objects, which allow them to modify it. All right. So by that, I mean, so we pass in our default list model. We can also pass in a main GUI object, private main GUI, and we say this dot main GUI equals main GUI. So essentially we pass in a main GUI object. Now we can say main GUI dot enable buttons. Again, this is when programming gets very complex because we're passing different objects to other objects and other classes, and they can use and modify them from there. So what this means is in our source, when we create our car GUI, not only do we pass in our default list model, we also pass in this GUI object. All right, this GUI object, this object. This object is a main GUI, which is what our car GUI is looking for. Right? So when I say this, I'm referring to the object that we are currently using. So if I hit run, when I say this, I'm referring to this GUI that you see. This is the main GUI object. So when we pass it to the object, to the GUI over here, we're passing this object to that one so that we can modify it. Let me repeat that. So when I pass this GUI, which is our main GUI, to the car GUI, I am passing this object over here so that when we add a car, Ford Mustang, 2 doors, sunroof, spoiler, 8 cylinders, when I hit add, it's going to say, make that GUI, this one, disappear. And then the main GUI, enable those buttons. So the main GUI, it's going to enable these 2 buttons on the main GUI. Add. And now those 2 buttons are enabled. Right? We can modify that GUI, the main GUI, from another one because we passed it to it. We passed the reference to it. Let me stop there and let that sit. Let me stop there and let that sit in. Any questions?
Nah, I like that better than the list value changing. I like that way better.
again, this is complex programming. So I don't want anybody to feel like if you don't get it, you're falling behind. And to be honest with you, the GUI is not really important to this class. The pillars of object-oriented programming are. This is more so if you want to develop a GUI for a future program, this is some of the things you need to consider. But this is complex. So don't feel like if you're not understanding it, you're not going to be able to program. So if you do have a question, please ask.
I'm really lost, but I'm gonna try to just watch the videos and try to catch back up.
Okay. Yeah, if you missed Monday, you missed a significant portion of this. And really, once you understand the concept of passing objects, this becomes easier. Because all I'm doing is passing objects between these different GUIs. And I can even pass the whole daggone GUI to another GUI. And you can modify it from there. Once you can wrap your mind around that concept, this starts getting a little bit easier. But that's really, this really puts into practice object-oriented programming, because we are passing objects, references to objects that you can modify within other objects. So once you can understand that concept, it becomes a little bit easier. But again, that's a huge concept that you'll have to try to wrap your mind around. All right, so the last thing I'm going to do today is the modify button in class anyway. I'll do the rest of these later on. So I go back to my main GUI, modify vehicle. I'm going to double click that. So one of the things is we want the user to have the ability to run the program, add new vehicle here, Ford, Mustang, 2 doors. I'm not going to say they have a spoiler, 8-cylinder, add. When they click on this, we want them to have the ability to modify that vehicle. And so when we modify the vehicle, what happens is this GUI will pop up and it'll say modify. It'll have all of these fields filled in. All right. All the fields will be filled in. So let's do that. So when they click on the vehicle, we need to obviously get which one is selected. So we know that eventually our list model, automobile, will hold either cars or trucks. Those are the two options. But we know since both of these inherit from automobile, I'm going to create a base automobile equals, I think it's autos model dot get, or maybe it's selected element. It might be the list.
Is it selected index?
Yeah, but I think it might be on our list, inventory list dot get selected. Let's see, selected index. Here we go. All right. So on our list, we can get the selected index. But using that index, we need to get the object from our model. Autos model dot get whatever that index is. All right. And from the autos model's perspective, it can hold any type of object. We know it's an automobile. All right, so I'm explicitly casting that into an automobile and then storing it into this variable. This is explicit casting. So again, this code right here, we get whichever index is selected in our inventory list. Using that index, we get the object, in our autos model, we grab that object, we cast it into an automobile, and store it in this variable. Again, this is far more advanced programming using GUIs than what we actually covered. We covered this in class, but now it's really putting it together and using these. So then we need to check which type of object this is. If automobile instance of car, we know this is a car. Car equals explicit cast that automobile into a car. Same thing for truck, else if automobile instance of truck, we explicitly cast that into a truck. We do this so that we know which type of GUI we need to pop up. All right. So if it's a car, we know we need to use our car GUI. If it's a truck, we need to use the truck GUI. All right. In our car GUI, we have a set add prompts method. I'm going to do a public void set modify prompts method. And this one, I'm going to say this dot title label equal or dot set text equals modify auto. This dot enter button dot set text is modify. And then I'm going to reset the GUI as well. That way, when we click the modify button, we pull up this new text box or this new GUI. It's going to say modify auto and modify. So let's see what that looks like just doing that so far. So car GUI dot set modify prompts, car GUI dot set location relative to null, car GUI dot set visible to true. All right, let's see what that does. I run this. Add new vehicle, car, Ford Mustang, 2-door, sunroof, 8 cylinders, add. If I click here, modify, you see the title is modify auto and the button says modify. Okay. The button says modify. That's all I've done so far. And that's what this set modify prompts button does in our car GUI. Set modify prompts. All right. The next thing before we do all this, or after we do the set modify, we need to set the text boxes, the value equal to what is part of this car. So car GUI dot, and I think since those objects are private, so all of our text boxes and everything in this class are private. All right, so we can't access them through this class. They're all private, they're encapsulated. So what we can do is public void set modify values. I can create a method that takes a car object. Then using that car object, I can say this dot make text field dot set text equal to car dot get make. This dot model text field dot set text. This dot set model. Or this dot get model. Not this, car dot get model. This dot num doors combo box dot set. Let's see. I want to try set selected item. Let's see if this works. Set selected item to car dot get num doors. I'm gonna see if that works. This dot num cylinders dot set selected item car dot get num cylinders. This dot spoiler dot set selected car dot is spoiler. This dot sunroof dot set selected car dot is sunroof. We're going to see if those work. All right. All right. So here I can say car GUI dot set modify values, and we pass in our car object. All right. We pass in our car object. So let's see if that will update our modified GUI. Add new vehicle. Ford Mustang. Number of doors is 2. Sunroof. Number of cylinders is 8. Add. It might give us an error. Okay. So for the most part, things work except for the num doors and num cylinders. I think that doesn't work right now is because the objects in here are strings and we pass in an integer. But I'll figure that out in a later video when I post this up on YouTube. It's going to be a long video, but I'll try to give it the different chapters, if you will, so that you all can skip through it as you like. But again, this is extra credit. You don't have to do this. I know this is pretty advanced, but I'll put it up there for your information. I also have videos from previous semesters that you can look at, which approach it in a different way with different objects. And you can see what I did there instead of here. I do it differently every semester. So it just depends. All right, with that, I'm going to end class. I will see you on Monday at 12:30 p.m. Good luck. I wish you all the best. It's been a great semester. The fact that you all lasted this entire semester is a testament to you all, because as we go through these classes, they typically get fairly small, as you have witnessed. So the fact that you all made it and understand most of this for the most part is a testament to you. So congratulations, and I look forward to seeing you all walk across the stage in a couple years.